Lyney is finally coming to Genshin Impact after being one of the first characters ever to be revealed in the original Genshin Impact story trailer. He's currently facing accusations of being mid throughout the community, and I have my concerns as well, but don't be fooled. If you're excited about this character, then rest assured he is going to be plenty strong for you. But for those of you who are more on the fence, let's talk about some critical things that you need to know before you wish. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Lyney is an on-field pyro DPS whose kit incentivizes him to be played with at least 2 other pyro units to get his maximum buffs. He does have other team options, and we don't know for sure that that's going to be his best team, but just looking at what his kit has to offer so far, it seems that that's going to be the case. So let's start with his pros and cons. He has really good synergy with Mono Pyro, which is already a strong core, and it does seem like he probably will be an upgrade to that, although there does seem to be some caveats. We don't know exactly how much of an upgrade over Klee he will be, because due to the nature of his kit being a bow charge attack character and his synergy with Lyney is unknown, there's a lot of things that are still kind of up in the air as to how good they will actually be and how good they will perform on practice versus how they perform on sheets. For example, there's some sheets that show that if you played Tighnari absolutely perfectly, he would be the #1 DPS team in all of the game for a single target. But because it's actually impossible to do that in practice, that's obviously not the #1 single target team. It's not even close. And I'm not saying that Lyney is like being overrated by the theory crafting sheets and things like that. Most theory crafters are doing a great job of working in that practicality aspect into the sheets that they're making. But there's certain things that we just can't know until he actually comes out and we actually know how he feels. So that's the #1 thing that I would wait for, is to see how does his actual damage compare to his predicted damage. And that's the second problem we have when he's first being revealed and when we're still evaluating him, is he works best with his signature artifact set, and his signature artifact set is going to be brand new. So I would not be surprised at all if on release people test him out and they find him kind of mid. They don't think that he's really that good of an upgrade over Klee, and they don't really think he's all that strong. I would not be surprised if this was the case at all, because he is so reliant on his signature artifact set, on getting his talents up, on his personal damage, on maxing him out as a character, and that's going to be really challenging to do first thing when he first comes out. There's no way people are going to be doing that on day 1 or even in the first couple days. So for me, although it might hurt my initial views, I personally won't be releasing my Lyney guide right away because I can't pre-farm for him. I've been stocking up as much fragile resin as possible, but I can't pre-farm for him. There's certain things that we just can't know until we test him properly. So I will be getting him on day 1. I will be testing him as much as I can for many hours and farming his artifact set to get the best artifact set I can, but there's only so much we can know, and so you kind of have to take his damage numbers upon release with a bit of a grain of salt and expect that the perception of him will likely grow over time. Based on what I've seen before, is when characters come out and they need a new artifact set, those characters are generally underestimated, and then over time people kind of warm up to them. But there are some things that we do know about him. We know that he will have the Uza and Numa mechanic, which means that he will most likely be a staple on your team through all of Fontaine. You'll probably be glad you have him. It's not that he'll be by any means the only character that can do this, but if you love him, then he'll probably be somewhere that you can always bring to fight those specific Fontaine encounters. Another con though is that he's a pretty squishy charge attack bow user, which the playstyle of some people don't like. If you don't like Ganyu, you probably won't like Lyney, although he does use his skill and burst a lot more effectively and with a lot more field time than Ganyu does. So you won't be doing as much just straight charge attacking. There'll be more variety to his gameplay than some other charge attack bow users, probably even more than Tighnari, because you're doing a bit of that riding around on his hat as well. The final con for Lyney is that he uses units that have really good partners already. Bennett, Zhangling, Kazuha is probably going to be his highest damage team, and there are plenty of other units that can use those characters really well to great effect. It's unlikely that he'll be the best unit paired with those units, but I do think he will be very strong. I'm using Yoimiya as a placeholder for Lyney here. This will almost definitely be his highest potential damage team. The question is, will it actually practically be feasible? Because he is a charge attack bow user without having any form of resistance interruption on your team. I don't think it'll be impossible to play, but will it be enjoyable? Will it be fun to play? Will it be smooth? Will you be able to do it without doing a bajillion retries? That I'm not really sure of. And it's a big question mark as to how strong he will be, in my opinion, as to whether or not this team actually works in practice. There is a question of replacing Kazuha here with Lynette, who does pretty solid personal damage along with VV grouping and also provides a taunt, and in conjunction with Lyney's taunt, it's possible that the crowd control provided by that, as well as the taunt, gives you enough defensive utility that you don't need to run a shielder with the team, and he'll be able to get some charge attacks off because of the 2 taunts that are on the field from Lyney and Lynette. And if that's the case, that's really, really cool, because first of all, it'd give you a reason to play them both together, and second of all, it would give you access to a potentially higher damage team with some defensive utility. Now, if that doesn't work, if the taunts aren't super effective, then we're looking at reworking this whole team. What would that look like? If we can't run Zhongling, then we have to run Dea instead. You can also do Zhongli in this slot. It's possible that Dea is the better pick. Zhongli might be able to support shorter rotations, but he also raises the ER requirement for the team and has a less consistent tenacity of the Millith buff than Dea. So if you're using Dea or Zhongli on this team, what it does do is it puts a lot more focus on Lyney, because you're going to be buffing him a lot more. So it's going to scale a lot more with your investment into Lyney. And I'll talk about this more when I get to the weapons section, but Lyney has a pretty big disparity from his 4-star weapons to his 5-star weapon. But I'm really excited to play this team. I expect this to be one of his most comfy teams and sort of a good hybrid between damage and comfort. There also is some possibility that some sort of reverse melt team, such as with Layla or with Rosaria or something like that, could work on this team. I don't personally expect it to be that crazy, but it's definitely something that I will try out. I can't think of any other funky teams. I don't think he works in Burgeon. I don't think he works in Vape. For his build, I'm going to personally leave him at level 80, not Ascended. I would not say he's a priority 1 to go to level 90, because Mono Pyro, you just get some base attack by going to 90. You're already playing him with Bennett, not that big of an increase. I'm going to aim for high investment into talent though, because all of his investment is based on talent damage. I'm going to go for something like 988 with his normal attacks being level 9. Whether normal attack is head and shoulders above burst and skill sort of depends on how many charge attacks you're going to be getting off during the rotation. I'm expecting it to be the most important to level up his normal attacks, but we'll have to see. For weapons, he scales really well with 5-star bows. His signature weapon is something like a 20% increase over the prototype Crescent when it's at full stacks, when its passive is activated. The issue is that the passive activates when you get a headshot, and I don't really like that, because first of all, I'm skill issue, and second of all, you can't always get a headshot. The enemies will not always be headshotable, and I really don't like running weapons that I just can't run against certain enemies. That feels really, really bad to me. So it's actually going to be, although it's a 20% against the prototype with its passive, it's a 30% increase approximately over other 4-star options like Viridescent Hunt or something like that. And the biggest issue with that is, if you're playing him on the Zhangling variant, it is not as bad, because a good portion of the team's damage is going to be coming from Zhangling. But if you start playing on them on the more hyper-focused comps like Zhongli or Dea, more of the team power balance shifts to Lyney, and your investment in Lyney really, really matters a lot. So having a 5-star weapon could be really, really important. I will be testing him without a 5-star weapon to beginning. I don't have any 5-star bows in my account yet, and although I do test some 5-star weapons on my account, I don't have any yet, and I don't quite have the resources, aka money, to spend on the weapon banner right now, because it can be really, really expensive. So it is something I'm concerned about, is how much he will rely on his 5-star weapon. If you're someone who likes to go for the 5-star weapons of the characters anyway, and you don't have a problem with that, that's totally great. But if you're someone who relies on 4-star weapons like me, I'm a little bit concerned for this character. In a similar vein, Lyney will need his signature artifact set. Normal and charge attack damage plus to 15%, and when a character's current HP changes, their crit rate will be increased by 11% for 5 seconds, max 3 stacks, so a 33% crit rate and a 15% normal and charge attack damage buff. It's an absolutely insane set for him, and he can use it perfectly the way his kit works. And so if you don't feel like farming a whole brand new set, I will be farming it. I'm really excited because this one works amazingly with Fischl, and Fischl is one of the best characters in the game. So having these two in the same domain, the fact that I get to farm this one for free and you get to farm Lyney's special set along with Fischl is a big win. So I'm excited, but it could take a while to get this set built up. So that could be a positive or a negative depending on how you look at it. Also, the fact that he can use such an amazing set might edge him higher against the comparison with Klee. We'll have to see. In terms of vertical investment, his constellations, from what I've heard, are pretty equal across the board. He does gain significant power from his constellation, similar to his weapons. Depending on the team that you're playing with, it's going to matter more whether or not you have some constellations for him or not. I think it seems like to me that that his weapon is going to be the more desired target than his constellations, which is nice because the weapon banner is quite good. Even if you fail and get Aqua Simulacra, it's still going to be a really good weapon on him, so that's really, really nice. It is going to be harder if you have something like the Viridescent Hunt or the Skyward Harp, because those were crit rate, and he gets, as you saw, so much crit rate from this set, as well as crit rate on his ascension stat. So you're gonna have to farm for a lot of crit damage on your substats. For future prospects, it will be interesting if he ends up working with the Archon, because he is Pyro, and obviously the Archon's Hydro and Pyro have often worked together on vape teams. I have a hard time seeing them work together in a vape team. I think it's possible, but you would need either a ton of Hydro application from Furina, and it would have to be off field and not activated by normal attacks, and it would probably have to be AoE. It would be quite the tall ask, or she would have to have like some big nuke that she can forward vape off of Lyney. So could that happen? Yes. You know, a lot of the Sumeru characters revolved around the Archon. A few Inazuma characters revolved around the Archon, but not a huge amount. I would say there were a bunch of Liyue characters that revolved around Zhongli, and pretty much the whole meta revolved around Venti when he was out. So it's hard to say whether or not he will really well synergize with Furina. I think it's possible. If he does, then that will probably bump his power up a good amount, because I would guess she's going to be pretty darn strong. For overworld and aesthetic, I think he's going to be great for the overworld because he's not energy dependent or burst dependent. I probably won't ever use him in the overworld because he doesn't really have good synergy with Yelan, and she is my favorite character for the overworld by a pretty good margin. So if a character doesn't work with her, they pretty much don't get on my overworld team. But in general, he will be a good character, especially for those long distance charge shots to make annoying enemies easier to fight. Gonna be really, really nice. And for aesthetic, it's not my style. I think he has a really nice design, a really good design, but it's not like my style. It's not a design that I'm excited for, and I'm a bit salty that he's a Pyro bow user that fires AoE firework arrows, and that we already have a Pyro bow user that fires firework arrows, and hers are not AoE, and it's one of her biggest issues. And so I'm a little bit salty about that. So he kind of reminds me of the things I hate. But that being said, I think he looks really cool. He has a really cool kit, and I'm excited to try him out. Let me know if you're going to be going for him. Let me know if you're going to be waiting. Again, I'm going to try my best to get the guy out as soon as possible, but I will not sacrifice quality for having it out sooner. I'm going to make sure that I get you the best Lyney guide on YouTube. Please consider subscribing. We are full-time now on the channel. It's super, super exciting. Check out the Discord if you want to join a great community, and check out my Patreon if you want to think about supporting me. But if you don't want to do any of that, that is totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.